Welcome to Evolution of Self with me, Britannia.
Hello. So this week I want to speak to you about something that's the opposite of what I've spoken about before. So in the past I've spoken to you about fear and making decisions from fear, and how when you make decisions from fear, you generally create the thing that you're actually afraid of. Anyway, I'm not going to go too much into that. I'll see if I can find the episode with that particular link and I'll pop it in the show notes below so that you can listen to it if you want to. But what I want to speak to you today is about the opposite of fear. So when we are overexcited, when we are highly energized, but not in a sort of connected, deep, present kind of way, because there's also a way of being highly energized in that space. But when we kind of like feel invincible, like nothing can go wrong, it's almost like if something goes well, we kind of spiral and kind of go the opposite way, and we feel like we could conquer the world. I'm struggling to find the right words to truly explain this state of being. But in this state of being, we can do impulsive things and make decisions that we wouldn't make if we were present and calm. For instance, in this state, some people spend lots of money. They suddenly go on a buying spree. I think people can reach this state, although I've never really experienced it, so I'm just kind of going on my experience of others, when they've had too much to drink. So for instance, I know some people, when they've had too much to drink, go on spending sprees on Amazon and things like that, and suddenly end up buying a whole lot of stuff that they would never have bought otherwise. I know somebody who used to phone people and call people when they'd had too much to drink. Again, it was this sort of elevated high, and have conversations that they then later regretted. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's easy to see when we're in a fear state and see how that affects us. But when we're in this sort of hyper elevated state, it can have just as many sort of damaging effects as it can when we operate from the fear state. So in both instances, my advice is always to try and get back to the present, not to act when you're in that space. Sometimes it's hard to get out of those spaces, and that's okay. You can feel and you can be with what you are experiencing, as long as you don't take action. Because it's when you take action from your thoughts and your feelings when you're in this space that you start to create a little bit of craziness, a little bit of chaos in your world that then keeps you going on that sort of bounce. I did a diagram years ago about exactly what I'm talking about. So the fear state in the depiction I created was down here, and this elevated hyper state is I drew up here. And I sort of drew a bouncing curve that takes us up and down and up and down. Because when we hit this elevated state and we start doing silly things like overspending, saying things that we wouldn't otherwise say without a filter, we suddenly get a wobble and we suddenly start feeling frightened. We give ourselves this sort of state of fear. And then quite often what will happen is obviously we then dip down into the fear state, and then we start sort of acting from the fear state. And when we recover from that and something good happens, we bounce back up into this hyper state. And it can be this continuous wave that carries on through life. Some of the highs are higher, some of the lows are lower. Sometimes they're just tiny little waves that kind of go as we go along. But it's important to be aware of that, because as I've said, there's this space in between these two waves, in the middle, that to me is presence. It's where we are when we're centered, when we're calm, when we're open, when we're not reacting to life, but we're actually living consciously. And that is the state that we want to try and aim to make decisions, especially, and take action from. Because that state is when we're consciously creating life as we really truly want it, rather than reacting to the stimulus of fear and excitement. It's been a little bit confusing, and if I can, and I can find a way to attach the document that I'm talking about, I will do that. Maybe I'll see if I can take a photograph and attach a photograph below. If it's not there, I'm sorry, but I will have tried. But I will put the link that I spoke about earlier down in the show notes below if I can find that. And I've recently created a short 7-day free course that about happiness, boosting your happiness. If you want to do that, then that'll be in the link in the show notes below. And if you want to contact me on social media or through my website for coaching or anything else, or just to let me know how you're doing and whether any of these things I share have got had any impact on your life, hopefully positive, then I'd love to hear from you too. Take care and all the best. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.